So, hi everybody, and welcome back to Jonnychipz in Conversation With. And we've got another episode for you today. My guest this week, he is a software architect. He works for Fineksus at the moment. He's recently awarded Azure MVP, and he's a community leader. He is also a Traefik ambassador. So, on that note, my guest this week on In Conversation With is Mert. So, hi Mert, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining me today. How's things with you?
Hi John, and I am very excited today. As you said, I am awarded as an MVP, and I got that medal today. And
Yes.
I am also very excited to being here, being your guest.
No, absolutely.
How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Mert. I mean, it's great. I know we've spoken in the past. I've been, really great to be a guest on your show a couple of months back, and I know we've been active across Twitter and the social media over the last few months. But I mean, for those that don't know you, Mert, I don't know if you just want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction, just to explain what you do and what's going on in the life of Mert.
Okay, I am Mert. I live in Istanbul, Turkey, and working as a software architect at Fineksus. We are working on financial messaging and AI-assisted AML solutions. I am working .NET technologies for 16 years. I started development with QBasic, then I switched to VB.NET and then C#. I like playing computer games, learning and teaching new technologies.
Sure
That's
thing.
me.
No, excellent. I mean, and obviously, I saw that the great news earlier that you've just been awarded that Azure MVP. I mean, I don't know if you want to give us a little bit of an insight about the kind of work that you've kind of put into the community to get that award. How did that come about for you, Mert?
Okay, let me tell you about my community activities. I have been in MSAT for 7 years. It's a very long-running community. We have been active for 15 years, I think. And I'm writing blog posts and organizing webinars and seminars before the pandemic. And last year I joined Cloud Family. Thanks, Gregor. And I started MSAT Live Webcast series. It's a bit long story, but I'll try to summarize it. My friends were asking me to make webcasts and say, hey, why don't you do a webcast? And I was a bit shy to do it, as you are talking to a screen instead of talking to people.
Yeah.
And then I want to do it with a guest so I can talk to a person that I can see. So I decided to make it harder and do it in English. It is not my native language. One day I saw a tweet from Hayden Barnes, and he wrote something like, if you have a technical problem with WSL, and if you want to work together, my DMs are open. So I sent a DM that I want to make a webcast with him about WSL, and he accepted it. And I don't have a proper equipment that time. I ordered a webcam quickly and a headset with a mic. But I could get webcam for that day. There was a delay on my headset shipment.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do my first webcast with an internal mic and found a headset with a broken mic.
Okay.
But it was a good experience for me. And after that day, all feedbacks are positive and decided to move on. With the help of the Cloud Family, I could find new guests, and you know the rest of the story. There are lots of MS Auto Live episodes. And last year, I completed more than 60 webcasts, including MS Auto Live and other webcasts in Turkish. Also, I have a local Traefik meetup group, which is officially supported by Traefik Labs.
Okay.
We are doing webcasts once a month. It has now more than 100 followers on our meetup page. And this is my open source site, I can say.
The MS How To Live series is, I think, how I first got in contact with you, Mert, obviously going back a few months, and I could see that the content and the range of speakers that you've had across that particular webcast series has been really good. How many did you say? Was it 16 episodes that you've recorded, or was it 60? Sorry, Mert, what was it?
It's I think we passed 60.
Wow.
including the
Yeah, I was gonna,
Turkish ones.
that's a lot of webcasts to do, and like you say,
Yeah.
and they're in a mixture of Turkish and obviously you've taken it upon yourself to do a fair amount of those in English as well, which is fantastic. It's phenomenal, really. So
Okay, and it also includes the global Azure bootcamps
yeah,
and other Microsoft events in Turkey, not just only MS Auto Live. Also some global Traefik meetups, which were in English.
so yeah, I mean that's brilliant to hear. That is, Mert. I mean, so in terms of your day job, you're a software architect. So what does it mean to be a software architect and really what are your responsibilities in that position at the moment, Mert?
Okay, my job description is making high-level design choices and enforcing development standards, choosing right tools and platforms to implement. And I also make code reviews, POCs for new technologies, and design application and make necessary optimizations. I also plan DevOps process and in-company trainings.
Okay, cool. And do you do that across the cloud platforms, or is it really Azure that you focus on? I mean, how did you first get in contact with working with Azure?
Because of the regulations, we cannot use Azure most of our applications. So our use is very limited. But I am trying to teach what we can do with Azure to my colleagues. And we are trying to use Azure as soon as we can.
Sure. So at the moment, you're
But
go on.
yeah,
Sorry, Mert. Go on.
and we are now trying to implement some Azure DevOps.
Okay.
And please go on. I think you asked some question.
Yeah. I mean, so at the moment, so when you're doing a particular project within your role at the moment, what you're saying is that you can't use Azure that often with your day job. So I'm assuming you've learnt all the Azure side in your spare time and your free time outside of work. Is that fair to say, Mert, at the moment?
Yes, as I said in my introduction, I love learning new technologies, and my previous job, I am using Azure very much, and I want to continue using Azure in my free time, that I cannot use it on my daily job. So in my free times, I am learning new Azure services, making POCs.
Sure.
That's why I'm contributing to the community, try to learn new stuff, because it's pushing me to learn new stuff. For example, I want to write a blog post, but before I need to decide what will I write. So I pick a service from Azure, make a POC, learn it, and write a blog post. And sometimes I make a webcast about it. So it forced me to learn new technologies on Azure.
No, absolutely. I mean,
Maybe one, yeah,
I mean, it's a fantastic way to learn. I find as well. You know,
yeah.
if you're learning, like you say, you're doing a proof of concept, a POC of a particular technology area, just to write that out into a blog post or do a little recording of it. I know that certainly helps me. So that's what you're doing at the moment, Mert, to make sure, obviously, you're learning all the new technologies. I mean, so. What does it mean for a software developer in Azure? I mean, what really has Azure got to offer from your point of view as a software developer, Mert? What areas do you like the best or the most, I should say?
Okay, a good question, but it has a very long answer.
Yeah, I can imagine.
First, yeah, first, as I said on previous question, you can test your application without any resources. But the best thing is there are lots of services that you can speed up your development and deployment process. For example, I don't need to maintain a server, IS or other stuff, as I can use Azure Web App or Azure SQL. And I don't need to use an APM tool to find bugs or track my application performance, as I can use Application Insights, which is a very popular service. And it is very easy to implement and use. And I'm sure you can fix a bug very quickly without debugging with the help of App Insights. There are lots of services to use for machine learning also. And you don't need to have a powerful CPU or GPU or lots of knowledge to create an machine learning model. And for containers, you can have your own container registry and use Kubernetes, just a couple of kubectl commands. And Azure Kubernetes service might be not that simple, but you don't need to manage a whole Kubernetes cluster. And the best thing is you don't need to be a .NET developer to use Azure. You can code with Ruby, Node.js, PHP, Python, or Java. And the most popular open source project have Azure implementation and support, which is another point to use Azure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've touched on quite a number of the key services that obviously Azure offers developers. I mean, you know, even from an infrastructure point of view and moving into the cloud, those platforms offer, you know, such a raft of, you know, it's such a powerful platform to start moving applications into or developing from the ground up. You know, I completely agree. I mean, in terms of developing applications specifically for the cloud, so we hear this terminology about being cloud native or, you know, just designed for the cloud or cloud first. I mean, what does it take to, you know, and how does somebody get started with that, in your opinion, to develop those kind of applications that are specifically meant for running in the cloud?
There are some options to use your application on Azure. First, the most known one, you can lift and shift your application, which means host it on Azure without any modification. It is the easiest and quickest way. But the second option is my preference, is the cloud optimization, which is the best option that you can use Azure services and reduce development costs. But you need to choose your services carefully to get best performance from the cloud, because there are lots of services to choose from and they might be look similar. And also the most important thing, you need to be careful about cost optimization. And you need to learn about that optimization, because you don't want to see your bill at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, you hear so many horror stories, don't you, about people developing things in Azure and forgetting to switch them off and having some crazy bill at the end of it. So, I mean, have you got any tips or hints around that from a cost management point of view, Mert?
I think you need to learn which services you need to choose, because I think the best thing is start with the documentation, because whatever your language is, there are lots of stuff to learn about choosing the right services. And it is the best, I think the best place is Microsoft Docs and MS Learn. It's a perfect place to start. And there are lots of samples about cost optimization on MS Docs. There's a cost optimization page on Azure portal. Maybe there are some options to learn there. You can set some graphics to track your usage. And you need to be careful about the size, because when you create a resource, you need to choose a size, and you don't need to choose a higher option that you don't need to use. You need to be careful about it.
Sure.
And also, if you delete a resource, you need to be sure you deleted all of the resources related to that resource, because sometimes people delete their VM and forget to delete their disk. So it might be a problem for their build.
I mean, that's a great, you know, sort of bit of advice there, isn't it? I mean, in terms of choosing the services that you're going to run or you're going to use within Azure, and I think a lot of the Azure services, they do offer either a free tier or, you know, a low tier that's not going to cost you an awful lot. So it's I think there is a web page on Azure that shows those, isn't there, Mert? So I mean, that's probably a good place to start, I guess, if you're just learning these technologies for the first time, is look for those free tiers or really low cost tiers. And like you say, the Microsoft Docs website for Azure, I mean, it's great. It's got all the information you need. So I mean, that's great advice there, really. I mean, sorry, yeah, go on.
Also, I can recommend to have a look at some architecture samples. There is a free ebook on Microsoft named The Developer's Guide to Azure. And can you share my screen? I can.
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
Show it. Okay.
There we go.
So this ebook contains lots of samples. As you can see, there are some services, their explanations, and also some demos and real-world applications. You can learn a lot of things from that ebook. Also, I look at that ebook time to time. It is highly recommended and a great place to start.
So I'm assuming that gives you some form of like a reference architecture for a particular solution, does it?
Yeah.
And points out the kinds of elements within Azure and the technologies that you may be looking to consume for that solution. That's good. And I guess all of these links, we'll make a list of all of these links and obviously put them in a blog post attached. So I'll put that in the chat below or in the description of this video. I mean, that's great to see.
Okay,
I mean, yep, go on. Sorry, Mert.
And there are other links we can share about the architectures. I think they're in Microsoft Learn site. I also recommend to look at that architectures and designs for their cloud optimization. Because if you design your application not very good, it also you cannot get good performance and cause a high bill for the application that we cannot do in our applications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's Microsoft are great at putting that kind of literature together, aren't they, Mert, in terms of best practices. And I guess it's that I think that there's the term around well architectured framework, isn't there, that I think Microsoft use for a lot of these solutions. So yeah, I mean, there's some great content. I mean, it's probably fair to say it's bedtime reading because there's a lot of content, and I'm not sure if it's meant to be read from end to end, but certainly if you've got, I think I spoke with a previous guest, Chris Reddington, around the design patterns and certain elements of how you might fit solutions together. So yeah, I mean, we'll put all the links to that content below. I mean, that's great to see. So
yes, there are lots. There are lots of design patterns in cloud, so you cannot learn them at the same time. So you need to look at that architectures when you need to choose a design pattern, because when you choose a design pattern, it might not be good for your application. So you need to read carefully. Read all of them because they are in some groups, and you need to choose from there. You don't need to memorize all of the design patterns because I think you cannot, because lots of design patterns in there. And also the good thing is for the ebook I have showed you, it's updated time to time, so it's a good reference point, I think.
No, absolutely. I think, especially if you are, in the software development, software architecture space, knowing where to find all this information is sometimes tricky. I don't know how you find it, Mert, but it's sometimes it's in Microsoft Docs. There may be other sort of product team blog posts and announcements. So Microsoft have done a fantastic job, haven't they, in pulling all of this information into some common areas for people to kind of use as a reference library. So yeah, absolutely. It's great. Thanks for the heads up on that, Mert. I mean, I don't know about you, Mert, but certainly from my point of view, over the last few years, DevOps has been on the rise. I think it's probably fair to say now.
Yeah.
I've spoken with previous guests about DevOps and how sometimes it's misunderstood or thought to be something that it might not be. And there seems to be this whole series of mystique, these questions around what DevOps is. I mean, from your point of view, Mert, as a software developer, what does DevOps mean to you, and why do you think that it's important in today's industry?
Okay. I don't want to say what DevOps is because, as you know, it's like a black hole.
Yeah.
We can talk about the morning. So DevOps is very important for the SDLC process. Let's imagine a CI process. A well-designed CI process can help you find your bugs, possible errors before going live, and you can run your tests and other scripts, for example. Even if you are working alone or in a team, it is very important to have a CI pipeline, automation, and also continuous deployment pipeline to deploy your applications just a single click. And all tests and checks, also deployment, are done automatically, and you don't have a chance to make a mistake because everything is automated. This is my point of view for DevOps, because DevOps is a different thing. There are lots of stuff to learn. As you know, there are lots of open source projects. If you look at a DevOps job description, you need to know lots of stuff. And also, Kubernetes is a whole different world. It is very hard to master it. So as a developer, CI and CD process is good point to start DevOps. And also you can start with Azure DevOps because it is easy to use and implement. Visual Studio or other IDs. As I say, the programming language is not important.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, again, you mentioned Azure DevOps there, which is essentially it's Microsoft's technology stack, the implementation of version control, boards, for work items, as well as, a place to store artifacts and all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of different parts to Azure DevOps and kind of create. I mean, I've been recently creating CI/CD pipelines to kind of do a lot of that automation that you talk of, but really from an infrastructure perspective. So to stand up infrastructure. So it's the same process that as I understand it, Mert. If you're developing software, if you are writing in, as you say, whatever the code of choice that you use, you use the similar CI/CD pipelines that to build and release that software product if you want to into production. Am I right in thinking that, Mert?
Yeah, because some people think using Azure DevOps you need to use Microsoft Stack or .NET technologies. You don't need to write in a specific language. And also the good thing is with the help of microservices, now we can use multiple languages and technologies in the same project. So we can combine all different technologies and stack and use a CI/CD pipeline to use them all in the same application. And the good thing about Azure DevOps is the first thing it is if you use Azure DevOps services, which is hosted on cloud, you don't need to use any VMs or local resources. And for example, you can use hosted agents on Azure, and it is very easy to use. It's a very friendly UI. You can also track your changes on Azure boards if you are using Agile, Scrum, or CMMI, or you are using just basic stuff. And if you cannot use Azure because of regulations, you can also use Azure DevOps Server on premises, which that gives you the same user experience on your local resources, which is also a good alternative for the companies cannot use cloud.
Sure. So that Azure DevOps server that might be installed on premise, is that an upgrade from the old Team Foundation server that was?
Yes, it is rebranded in last 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
And
I think I saw
if you
something
want
about
to,
that.
yeah, if you want to upgrade your TFS, it is upgraded to Azure DevOps Server. It might be look similar, but the whole structure is changed. There are lots of features in Azure DevOps, so I can easily recommend to update the on-prem TFS service to Azure DevOps Server. And there is an upgrade tool that you can run it and validate your migration. There is an option, the validate, and you can see if there will be any errors or not without actually upgrading it. So you can upgrade it and plan your upgrades without any problems. So that's also a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Microsoft are slowly trying to bring this whole world of dev and the ops side together to use very similar tool sets, if not the same tool set, but for different purposes. I mean, it's like you say, it's such a powerful set of technology products, and from what I've seen, again, even though Azure DevOps has got all of these different technology aspects to them, there are third-party services, for build servers and other bits and pieces. So there's Jira boards, there's Jenkins. They can all be integrated as well. So from what I understand, Mert, is that right? So you don't necessarily have to use every piece of Azure DevOps if you've currently got, like I said, Jenkins to build, or maybe you're using a separate board system. You can also integrate those quite easily, from what I've seen. Have you come across that much, Mert?
Not really, but Azure DevOps is a package. I think there are lots of services in there. You can only use Azure boards to track your agile process, or you can use Azure artifacts for your package resource instead of maybe using local NuGet server. Also, you can use the other services. You don't need to use all of them together, but you can, if you use all of them together, it's very tight package because the implementation is very easy. You can bind everything easily. It is already binded. And the good thing is you can also use it with Office products. For example, on Teams, there are lots of extensions that can use with Azure DevOps. You can track your changes, your tasks on Azure DevOps. Also, there is an Outlook extension. It is not necessary, but I think it will be good to use all of them together.
Oh, so that's cool. So what you're saying is that if you've got a project within Azure DevOps and you've got some work items and some epics, whatever it may be in Azure boards, you can expose that through a Teams add-on and through a Teams window.
Yeah.
So the rest of your project team can keep track of those items through the Teams client. Is that what you mean, Mert?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds
It
pretty
is very
cool.
integrated.
And that's all right. I'm assuming that's a readily available Azure DevOps plugin that we can put into Teams and use from the marketplace. Is it, Mert?
Yes, and it is already. I think it's in the marketplace, but there are other extensions you can use to integrate with Azure DevOps. Okay. Also, Azure DevOps has own extensions that you can install and use with it. For example, I think the best thing is the code search. It is a feature of Azure DevOps, but it comes like as an extension. If you want to install it, you need to install it in the marketplace. So, it uses Elasticsearch at the back, and you can search anything in your code in your browser. So you can search sample codes or methods or whatever you want. You can find easily, because as you know, searching it in Visual Studio takes some time.
Yeah.
But if you search it on Azure repos code search, you can find in a couple of seconds. It's like full text search in technical terms.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And also you can write your own extensions for Azure DevOps if you need some specific feature. It is also available to write your own extension, and you can also put it on the marketplace if you want other users to use your extension.
So it's pretty extensible then. I take it, like you say, if you can write your own extensions, then it's really open to your own imagination or for your own specific purpose. What do you actually need?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. Like you say, I mean, is there any other integration that you can think of that Azure DevOps has with the wider Office suite with Excel? I mean, I presume we can hook in. There's some package to hook in to pull detail out into spreadsheets and things like that. Is there, Mert, do you know?
Actually, to be honest, I don't know about spreadsheets or Word, but there's an Outlook and Teams integration. And also it's a good ID integration, for example, VS Code, Visual Studio, or other IDs. You can integrate Azure DevOps and use it seamlessly without any interruption. It's also a good point to choose Azure DevOps, because you don't need to make extra configuration to use their services.
Yeah, I think that's probably true of a lot of Microsoft products, isn't it, Mert? I think Microsoft develop these solutions to work well and have a lot of integration when you use the Microsoft stack, so to speak. In my experience, that just seems to be a given across lots of different Microsoft technologies. So I guess there are people that would say there are third-party services that may offer something of a particular function that may not be in DevOps, for argument's sake. But I agree, there's certainly a lot more to be gained by using as much of the stack as you can, because purely because of that, like you say, that simplicity of deployment and simplicity of configuration. It's all there as part of the software, I guess, Mert, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think from a DevOps point of view, that's like I say, I've been playing around with that myself over the last few months. So I can see now what you explained there from a from a software developer point of view. The mechanisms for use of these platforms are very similar, but they're fundamentally, it's so open that you can use pretty much within reason any programming language. You're running up a virtual agent that runs in Azure DevOps, and and it can deploy your code, it can publish your code, it can run command prompt, command line entries, bash scripts, PowerShell. It's just massively powerful from what I've seen, Mert. And I suppose, just to echo the point you said there about there is a lot to learn. I mean, you're not wrong from what I've seen. There is certainly a lot of different areas that you should have, a reasonable grasp of. Obviously, I'm not a software developer, Mert, so some of these things are very new to me. They make sense, I guess, but certainly there's a lot of grounds for picking up these new things and new technologies and learning them, which is it's great. I enjoy it. So I mean, let's turn our attention a little bit to open source then, Mert, for a second. So I mean, I hear a lot about open source being good and great, and we should all partake in this open source movement. Can you explain it to me a little bit, Mert? What does open source mean to you, and why is it such an important topic to speak about, certainly from a software development perspective?
Okay, I think there's two main points in open source. For example, you said that I don't have any development experience, but I think you want to learn development. Let's imagine you are new to development and start coding with tutorials and have no idea about an enterprise scale application. And you cannot see its detail without working at a company developing an enterprise scale application, or maybe you cannot see if you are not necessarily permissions to access that source code, even if you are working at that company. So with open source, you can have a chance to see the source code to learn how an enterprise application coded. You can see real best practices, mistakes, and lessons learned, and other experiences. If you look at GitHub page, you can see pull requests, details, and bugs, how people solving that bugs, or the mistakes in pull requests also. There are some details if you compare the costs on GitHub. The second one, it helps to go further more quickly, as you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, if you need a logging framework, there are lots of alternatives on GitHub, and you can also modify it according to your needs. You don't need to use as its actual state. You can extend it, change its functionality, or add a new feature or fix bugs if exists. Also, you can make contributions, which I want people to do, because we are using open source and use somebody else's program. So why don't we make additions or fixing bugs to help them? Because we are not the only one to use that program. Lots of people using that framework application or open source project. I think if we have time, we have to contribute open source to make a stable programs or good features that other people can use. I think that this is the main reason is open source is important for software development.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I've noticed as well. Microsoft even something like Microsoft Docs, that is set up on open source. So I think one of the things I got into the habit of doing is, I use Microsoft Docs quite a lot, and as you read through everything, sometimes there are mistakes in there. So I log in as my GitHub account and create a pull request and modify that line of text or whatever it is, and it's a great sort of example of how the power of many people, I suppose, can add to a particular project. And I guess that's no different for a like you've just said, to a software deployment or software development, a piece of code that is doing something. If it's open source, like you say, I mean, it just aids with the understanding and the learning. And if you do spot a feature that may either have a bug or something that might work a little bit better, then me or you as an outsider to that organization, provided they've set that code up in a way, in a repository that's accessible in that way, we can create like a pull request. We can create a modification to that code and ask the owner to look at it and read it and say, oh, okay, I'm giving this bit of information because XYZ, it may be adding a little bit better functionality, or creating a bug fix, or just modifying something that you've spotted is an error. So I guess that's what you mean by it's just important for software development, because it just gets everybody up and running quicker. Is that probably fair to say, Mert?
Yes, and also I want to add, for example, when you make a pull request and the owner of the project don't like it, you can have some discussions, the technical discussions about your pull request or your edition. It's also a good thing to learn something from other people, because there are lots of people have different experiences, and in these discussions you can learn from their experiences. Sometimes you can say this is the correct way and make a pull request, and actually it is not the correct way. According to you, it's the correct way, and you can learn the actual correct way to implement the solution.
Okay.
And sometimes I am reading the discussions about pull requests. It is also a good point to learn something from people's experiences.
Yeah, I mean it's great to see, and I mean when you say that you can have these technical discussions, where are you holding those discussions, Matt? Are you holding those over email or messenger, or is it straight in the platform of choice that you're using? Where do you have those discussions, Mert?
Mostly on their GitHub. If you go to pull requests or the issue, you can see lots of people make a comment about it. For example, there are lots of workarounds. People say if you do that, you can pass this error. Sometimes there is a fix, and the project owner say it's a good fix, but I cannot accept your pull request because it's going to break my other features. Or maybe sometimes they don't like your coding standards and say it's okay, but it is not actually proper to merge your code. So you can also learn how you have to write code, how can you make an addition to an application, or it's the basic thing is you can learn Git from using GitHub. And if someone asks me how to I learn Git, where should I start? I say fork a repo on GitHub and try to make some contributions because that's a good point to learn. And my opinion is you cannot learn all of the things just for reading. You need to start doing something. And the GitHub and the open source project is the best way to start learning. Also, programming, design patterns, coding standards, and some technical discussion, as I said, and learn from people's different experiences.
Yeah, so when you say fork a repo, what you mean is you effectively take a copy of all of that code that that company or that person has
Yeah,
written, take a copy of it, and you can modify that as much or as little as you like on your own PC or your own in your own
yeah,
repository, and then when you do hit something a bug or something that you might think is valuable to the person that you took that from, you can. That's what a pull request is, isn't it? Mert? Where you can push that
yeah.
back to that owner and say, look at what I've done. You know, do you want to merge that with your code? Is that what you mean, Mert? That's how it kind of works, is it?
Yes, you may choose not to make a pull request and continue with your own fork repo. It's a choice, but I don't like it because it's look like copying and continuing with it. So I choose to make pull requests because there are lots of people. For example, pull projects has lots of contributors, and it is growing more easily because lots of contributors making contributions to that code. So going for your own fork repository is not a correct way, I think. This is my opinion, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And but it is the way to make a pull request. First, you need to fork the repo and make modifications. And also, if sometimes some projects not maintained by their owner, and they can say, please make a fork and continue with your own repository because I don't maintain this repo anymore.
Right. Okay.
So it's an option to continue with your own fork repository.
But that's a great hint there. You know, if I guess you're watching this video and you've not touched Git or GitHub or a version control platform, I mean that's a great tip, Mert, in terms of find some open source projects and make a copy of that code and have a look and a play and see if you can create some pull requests and get into a conversation with the person that wrote that code originally. You know, it is. I mean, it makes sense what you just explained. It's a great way to learn these things, I guess. So, Mert, we mentioned at the start of the video that you are a Traefik ambassador. Now, personally, I don't know what Traefik is. I mean, can you give me a little bit of explanation about what Traefik is and what does it mean to be a Traefik ambassador?
Sure. Traefik is a cloud native edge router. It's a definition from the official documentation. It's a very popular open source project, and it has more than 32,000 stars on GitHub. And I can share my desktop again.
Yeah.
Can you please show?
Here we go.
Okay, this is the Traefik repository. This is what Traefik is. You can think it's gatekeeper. As you can see, there are lots of requests coming to different sources.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you get a request from apidomain.com, it redirects the request to the correct place, to your infrastructure. And the best feature is using auto service discovery. You don't need to change any configuration if you make changes in your infrastructure. It automatically change the necessary configuration, and also it has some good features like middlewares. You can tweak the request before you redirect it to your services. And also it is lots of products that you can use with Traefik. It is you can implement it with Docker and Kubernetes, Mesos, and lots of products. And it's a lots of features that I can talk about. It's a good web dashboard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like this, you can track your applications. Also, it has a good documentation. You can also get in the docs.traefik.io, and also you can see Traefik on Microsoft documentation for AKS. There is a sample how to use HTTPS certification for AKS. It's a good product. And regarding to your question, what's a Traefik ambassador? It's like an MVP for Traefik.
Mm-hmm.
And for my contributions to Traefik community, I have been awarded as a Traefik ambassador.
Excellent. Okay,
And also I have a local community in Turkey, and Istanbul Traefik Meetup, which is also supported by Traefik Labs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to contribute to Traefik every month with a webcasts or a blog post. And we can also, as I said, use it as an ingress with AKS. I also make a demo on Derek Campbell's show, if you have watched it before. I implemented Traefik with AKS and use it as a ingress there.
Excellent. So I mean, yeah, I think I'm just looking at your screen now, Mert, and so it just acts. It's like a middleware piece of software. Is it? Is
Yeah.
that the easiest way to summarize it? It's in between things that you may have running on the web, that you've got some stuff that you want to get access to, but Traefik sits in the middle there and redirects all of those various URLs
Yes.
to your back office kit.
Yes, exactly. And the good thing is you can extend Traefik, write your custom middlewares there. There are lots of middleware samples here. You can reduce your development costs because, for example, there is a basic authentication. You don't need to add a basic authentication or digest authentication in your code base. You can do it with a single line of configuration like this. It's also a good thing for your development. But you need to write the custom middlewares with Go. It is the only supported language right now.
No, it's great to see, and it's certainly something, obviously
Yeah.
I've seen you mention Traefik before. It's not something I've looked into, but I think after seeing this little glimpse into what Traefik is, that makes quite a lot of
Yeah.
sense, and it's definitely something I'll personally take a little look at. But I guess you can send me over the links, and we'll make the links available to all of these, this Traefik repo and all the other stuff we've talked about. Yeah, Mert, we can get those together,
Okay.
can't we? Yeah.
Sure. Also, I have a meetup about middlewares in English. Also, I can share it recorded link on YouTube.
Definitely, yeah. I
Maybe
can put all of these links together for everybody to click on and have a look at.
because I have made a demo about basic authentication there, so people want to see it in action.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really good, Mert. It's great to see these things as well, like you say. So I'm assuming you've been a contributor to the Traefik repositories for a fair amount of time, and obviously they've recognised you as a Traefik ambassador now for that amount of effort and work that you put into that. And you mentioned you've got that meetup group as well. So yeah, we'll get links to all of those resources. Like I say, it'll either be in the chat below or in the description of this video. Click on that link and it'll take you over to where they all are. I mean, Mert, we've covered quite a lot of ground there tonight now. I mean, is there anything we've missed off? Anything else you want to? Any final thoughts for the video?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to your show. Because I am a big fan of your show and also Azure's Live.
Yeah.
I try not to miss an episode, and if I miss an episode, I want to watch it on YouTube as soon as possible. Sometimes I watch some episodes twice because I learned lots of stuff from you and your guests, and hopefully you will continue doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I'm hoping to, Mert. And no, thank you so much. I mean, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Mert. Like I say, the fantastic work that you've been doing since I've started to become a little bit more public facing. You're certainly a person I follow with a keen eye on Twitter, and obviously MS How To Live, the guests that you have on as well. It's been really great to see this kind of community effort that a lot of people are doing at the moment. And you mentioned obviously Azure Live channel. Yeah, I mean there's just so much going on. It's fantastic to be a part of, I guess, Mert. But thanks for your kind words, and it really has been brilliant to have you on. And I guess huge congratulations on your MVP award as well, Mert, and I hope to see you continue over the next few years as long as possible, carrying on with your community contributions.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you as an MVP soon.
Well, we'll see. I've not got that far. I haven't been doing it too long now. We'll see. We'll see how we get on there. But yeah, Mert, as I search for the button that I can't find on my little stream deck, I'll just say thanks so much for joining me today. Like I say, this will be out on the YouTube channel, and thanks to all the guests that are in the chat room, hopefully chatting away now, or if you're watching this on the YouTube, huge thanks. So thanks once again, Mert, and I will look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you for having me today.
Thanks,
and
Mert. Yeah.
Looking forward to see you again.
Thanks, Mert. Bye.
Bye.